And welcome everybody to Coffee Code and Chat. Really excited to be here. I know it's Friday night. Most people have things going on. Not me, just hang out here. I have an awesome guest today. Gonna talk a lot about web development, learning to code, his journey. He also does Web 3, which I'm really excited about because I know nothing about it. So would love to hear the truth from someone who's actually doing it and not someone who's trying to sell me a course. By the way, you're watching Coding After 30. I stream Friday nights, 9 p.m. CST and Saturdays, 11 a.m. CST. So if you're not subscribed, subscribe if you want. But it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm going to go ahead and bring my guest so we could just dive right into it. And in the comments, just let me know if the audio is working, because the worst thing is going to be if you can't hear or see us. And so let me bring Spearbell on. Hey, what's up? Great to have you here.
Hey, how's it going? I'm doing great. I think now it's on the stream. I can see it.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm doing
there
great.
Might be a delay from like watching it on YouTube versus like what's happening. So like, you know,
Oh, okay.
don't worry about it. But you're on. Welcome here. Like, I'm glad that you were able to join and make it. Was really looking to have this conversation. What I like to do is talk to people that are actually like doing the thing they're doing, because I feel like that's where there's a lot of lessons for people looking to switch careers or learn to code. It's from the people that are doing it versus the people that maybe have done it a long time ago, or they're just trying to sell you courses. So thank you for stopping by.
Cool. Happy to be here.
Nice. And before we jump into your journey, let me just make sure in the comments that people are saying that everything is working. Let us know if you can hear our audio. But with that being said, like, everybody has their own journey of getting into coding. So let's just start by giving us a brief intro, like who you are and how did you get started in coding?
I mean, for me, it was like I got into coding through my open source work and through my hobby, basically, because for me, coding was more like a hobby. It was more like something that I did for my passion, for enjoyment, recreation. But I also discovered, okay, I can build like relationships through this open source work and actually get paid for what I do. So this is how I got into coding and making money with it.
Yeah, no, that's really awesome. I know there's like many paths people can take. What path did you take, and what kind of development do you do now?
I mean, what I was always interested in is like community software, which is like, I mean, maybe you know like this lineage of software, like these BBS boards, like even before the internet, and then you had maybe like vBulletin and like these older kind of shitty forum softwares, and then there's now this open source software, and I just started reading the code and basically building small additions to it. Like, for example, I wrote a small addition so that it's easier to add like math equations to forum posts, like these kind of small additions. That's how I got like slowly into the code base and learning about it. And yeah, it's through this kind of interest in building software for groups of people and not just like one person, because I think most of these bigger companies, they focus on making software for like a consumer, like one single person. But I was thinking more about, okay, I'm interested in groups and how groups communicate, like this kind of group media. And because I see like, okay, we have these kind of large media companies like YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and whatnot. And there's always like this kind of power differential between like you, the small little user, and the big company. And I think it would be better if we were more decentralized, where we would have like smaller communities that have the power over their own discourse. Yeah.
It's amazing because, like, listening to you right now, it's like you literally looking to have a deeper impact on like the whole, rather than just fulfilling like your goal. Like, hey, I'm gonna build this product for a consumer, but it's like you're literally doing something you believe in because it has the power to, you know, change lives and give the power to like the individual rather than these big companies. And this is not something, like, to be honest, I think about it because I kind of blinded to that, because like my life is good. I don't get to struggle through like some of the things that you know, or the reasons why, like, you know, you have big companies, they could do whatever the hell they want and there's nothing we could do about it. And it's like you're fighting the fight to be like, hey, I'm going to really work on projects, not because it's just the way to, of course, earn money, but it's because you really believe in the cause. And I think that's one thing a lot of people don't think about programming, at least I didn't, is where there's many reasons to do it. And one is to be part of a cause, continue to work on open source projects, because that's where like freedom of speech basically lives, and giving people the power to kind of be responsible. And so like, why did you decide to go into that specifically right away? You know, just like, why is it important to you, I guess?
I think because like it has the biggest impact. Like you have like the structure of the group is always like connected to the media, and if we can change the media, we can change the discourse. We can make it different. So, for example, like if you make it so that there are no like for example dislikes on YouTube, it has an impact on the creators. I mean, some people complained about it, and they said, okay, it's bad that we cannot downvote the big brands anymore, and like if there's something unpopular done by a big figure, it's maybe good if there's a dislike button so the public can voice like their opinion about it through using this dislike button. But I mean, it has good sides and bad sides. Always like, okay, for small creators, there's also some that said, okay, maybe it's better for me to not have the dislike button, to not get
Yeah.
trolled. So it always has a political implication. Like if you write code, like coding something means that what you do, like you can either help the rebels basically, or you can help the, like if you stay in the Star Wars universe, you can help the
Yeah.
Darth Vader build his Death Star. It's both just technology. And I remember like watching your stream, like one of your first streams, I think, or like a long time ago, like you asked like something, and then I wrote a comment and said like, I'm not learning code to find a job. I'm learning code to put a dent in the universe. I think like something like this.
Yeah.
And I mean, it maybe sounds a bit cheesy, but I really
No, no,
believe
no,
that,
no, no.
okay, it's about having an impact, and you need to think about um, what the consequences are of the code that you write.
Listen, that blew my mind, and I was actually going to bring that up because I do remember that comment, because it blew my mind that, you know, I am learning to code. Like, I love coding too. Like, the passion is there, but I'm doing it for like this very selfish reason of like creating something for myself. Not saying it's right or wrong, but to have you have that bigger vision. And I literally remember you saying that, and I was like, wow, like that is like, it was amazing to hear that, because you literally like, because I'm gonna call myself out on this. Like, I kept thinking of my world as me individual. What can I do for myself? And you're like, no, no, no. The world is bigger than me, and there's all this out there. What can I do for the universe? And that kind of like blew me away, because like, why didn't I think of doing something that has that massive reach? And like, I literally commend you for like doing something that has potential to basically continue improving the society, because I would argue that if there's no people like you, who's gonna fight the good fight? You know what I mean? And so to me, I was just like, I was like blown away by that statement, and it's kind of, you know, awesome. And I was like, man, I need to do more, you know. But it's cool. And so your path to development, like before, because I know you do a lot of like Web3 stuff now, and I definitely want to have a conversation about it. But when you were starting to learn to code, how did you start, like front end, or did you already know a path that you wanted to do?
I mean, for me, it was always about, okay, I want to learn how computers work. Like, I want to understand them, because to me as a kid, it was always like a magical machine. Like, how do you, like, I was always like a bit like surprised by how something like this could even exist. It's like a magical device, because you can, in a way, like use words, like programming, like code. It's words in the end, and use these words to change a machine, like change its
Wow.
behavior, like in some way. Because like to me, like a computer. I mean, because like the first computer got invented in Germany, and it was like a mechanical machine at the time, so it was completely mechanical. And then they built one that was partly electrical, and this one got lost in the Second World War. But then the third one was already electrical, and you see, like it's basically like a clockwork in the beginning, and then it's like you can change these gears inside and the machinery inside, how it behaves, this clockwork. You can change it with words, and that to me is like it's like real life
Yeah.
Harry Potter shit. And I just wanted to understand it, and that's how I got interested in computing and computers in general, and wanted to understand it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. And to me, like it's it's cool to talk. Like, of course, many people do programming for whatever reasons, but it's awesome to talk to people that actually have the passion for the technology, like the magic of it, and to me it's like really exciting. And so your interest, you really liked how computers work, the power of being able to use words to influence the machine to solve like bigger problems. And so when you started building things, like what was your first thing that you built, like when you were first learning to code?
I don't even remember because I did so many things and I never published them because, as I said, it's my hobby, it's like my passion. But then I realized later on, okay, I'm also interested in society and politics and this kind of stuff, and how media affects people. And that's when I got interested in the history of like this kind of forum software. And that's how I became interested in discourse. Like discourse is like the most commonly used forum software now, and it's also open source. Like there's no, like it's completely permissionless. Like anybody can go on meta.discourse.org, they can just join the community, they can just look at the code, and they can just build small additions to it. They can learn how the code works, they can host it themselves. It costs like $5 a month to just basically, or you can even get it for free if you do like AWS micro instance. You can get a free server and you can just host your own instance there. And the thing is, you have absolute free speech there because like nobody can, like they would need to control your server, and but your server is rented by you, so it's yours. Like you can say what you want there and run the community there however you like to do it. And yeah, that's how I then decided on, okay, what do I want to focus on? Because I mean, you can try to make stuff from scratch, but the issue is that you, as a single developer, you will have a hard time to develop all the different parts that are necessary
Yeah.
for this kind of system. Like where people communicate in a group, you need these kind of moderation system. You need a search function. You need this kind of post, like the ability to post things. Like all these things that you cannot make this as a single person. So that's why it's better to depend on this larger system and just modify it to fit your needs.
Yeah. So what were the steps for you to like getting involved in open source, or how would you recommend if someone kind of hasn't done it yet, but they're curious to work on an open source project? Is there like an etiquette? Is there like a way or recommendation you would recommend people engage with that community?
I think it's like you need to, first of all, you need to have like a motivation. Like you need to have a goal that you truly believe in, like something that, like a problem you see in the world that you really deeply care about. And then you search which kind of open source software, because there are other people like you that see the same problem and want to solve it. And then you go out there and search for a project that you're interested in that solves your problem. And then you just become involved in the in the community and just communicate with the people there, become like build trust in the community, just be out there and be like just build trust online. It's just like the kind of steps you need to do. Like the same thing when you, I don't know, want to have friends on Facebook, like a similar thing basically.
Yeah.
And there's no permission to it. Like everybody can just join. Yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine, like, because I work for like a open source company, Strappy, and I could see how, having a good relationship with the company and the community is like super important. And it seems that some companies like sometimes like what the vision of the company is, who's like started that open source project versus the vision of the community might not like align, and that creates like a lot of like struggle, if you will. And the projects have you worked on, have they always been like really well like run, and the ones that you engage in, or have you seen like where, okay, the company's doing something that's completely not what the community wants, and how do you like handle that?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, there's the issue that, I mean, for example, Discourse, it's like there's a company behind it that sells hosting. And I mean, it was created by the co-founder of Stack Overflow. So it's a very like he was very connected in the like startup space. And if you read the notes of him about this, like why this company was started and why Discourse was started, it was because he couldn't, because his friends from the startup world asked him, how do we do these like kind of customer relationships? And he wanted to recommend forums, but from his mind, from his point of view, there was no good forum software at the time, or not good enough forum software. So that's why this project was created. But obviously, there's maybe a difference between what you want and what the goals of this company are. Because I mean, their business is about having these relationships with their customers and basically serving their needs. And maybe your goals of having this kind of free speech online platform or whatever like your motivation was to get into it is maybe different from this. I guess always there's for sure there's a tension between the community and the company structure and their interest and your interest. And I mean, there's no easy answer to this. It's something
Yeah.
that we still need to work out. And this is also where I think that maybe this whole crypto thing is a good solution.
Yeah.
Like this is, yeah.
Yeah, like I was gonna ask to follow up on the open source. How do you know like that the open source project is managed well? In terms of like, I guess like what I would say, there's an example where this happened at Strappy, by the way, where they created a feature, but they didn't, just due to the time constraints, they didn't involve the community in the feature. And what happened, we ended up releasing the feature. And then the community was kind of like, where did this come from? This is not something that we even voted on. And so there was like this miscommunication. And obviously Strappy learned from it, where it's like you need to have your community engaged. If you're open source, you have to be open about everything you're doing. So for you, like some of the open source projects that you worked on, how does that communication work, and how do both sides stay aligned in like what they're doing?
I mean, there's different projects. Like, for example, if you look at Discourse, the thing that I'm involved with, and Monero, which I'm involved with, and I mean, it's like the complete opposite ends. Because the one thing is, okay, it's an open source project that is built like supported by a company, and there's not much like I mean, there's some influence you can have on what your code does and the plugins that you write for it and the modifications that you write for it, but the general direction of the company and the project is determined by the company and the customers of the company and their interests and needs. But on the other hand, we have like a community-run project like Monero is completely different because it's run much more by the community and it's funded by the community. It's like it has its own like decentralized funding systems, and there's not like the central entity that is running everything. I mean, there's also issues with it, and there's lots of room for improvement when it comes to these kind of like public goods funding systems. But you already learn, like you can already tell from the word public goods funding systems, like it's a public good. It's like it's a community. It's basically like a state. Like it's a public thing. It's like a community. Meanwhile, in the other like more company focused open source project, like they it's a private good in some
Yeah.
sense because it's like it belongs to a company in a way. So depending on what you want to do, like it's like it depends on the project, like how it's run. So yeah.
Yeah. What I was gonna say, like, take a little step back, because I could tell that freedom of speech is like super important to you, and so I wanted to know like where does that come from? And I think like especially in US, like a lot of people might take this freedom of speech for granted, but then they might not realize how a lot of these companies where they say it's freedom of speech, but they're encroaching on people's rights without people even realizing that. So why is this like important like to you? That you get involved in such projects?
I mean, the thing is that in the future, like what is going to happen? Like we see that, okay, many Western leaders want to copy the Chinese model of controlling people, of
Mm.
controlling media. And I think that's bad. I think like
Yes,
also the
that's
way money
definitely
is
bad.
used as a, yes, it's not fun. It's not a future we want to have. And I think what is especially worrisome is like how they use money to basically fight against the political opponents. That, for example, if you do political speech online, you will get maybe your bank account cancelled or your PayPal stuff frozen. Like now with PayPal, they say, oh, $2,500, we just take it from your accounts if you spread misinformation. Like, but who determines what is misinformation? Like, it's a very big issue, and I think we need to fight like about this, because it's not the future we want to have, where like some big company or the government can just turn off the money, like the ability to use money or their social media accounts of some people just because they don't like what they're saying.
Yeah, based on like some weird social score, and they're like all of a sudden
Yeah,
can't use your credit card anymore. Like what's happening in China, it's pretty insane, and I hope that no other place in the world like goes in that direction. But I feel like anybody in power, if they could get away with taking away some of the rights, they will. And so we do need to kind of stay vigilant and constantly talk about this freedom of speech. And I think like it's a very important cause. And I think a lot of people in the US don't realize the reality of like how much of the social credit system is used in China, and how it literally makes people prisoners in the area they live. Because if your social score gets really low, you might not even be able to buy a ticket to go to another province or even have permission to leave. And that is insane. And people think it's like something like from Orwell, like, 1984, that it's somewhere in the future. No, it's happening now. And this is what people, I think, don't realize. And for me, like, it's kind of like, cool to kind of, hear your side of the story. Because for me, like I said, like Web3 to me, or it's like, it's an alien language. I have no idea what you can do with it. Why would you use it? And it seems that people that are being involved in Web3 projects are people that are really like passionate about freedom of speech. And they could see where using this type of technology helps to, maintain the power to the community, to the people, rather than having one centralized authority that is in control of it.
I think, like, for example, in the Monero community, which is like it's like an OG like crypto project. It's like very old already, and it's like many people in this community are very critical of the term Web3, because so many people use buzzwords and try to scam people with this word by just claiming something that it is not. And but this project is basically just focused on creating digital cash, like something that extracts like cash, where every transaction is private and your data is not shared with anyone, and you can just basically use it like cash, but on the internet. So, and I think this kind of things is especially necessary to fight against this kind of political Orwellian idea that is coming there for us. So, and that is not just happening in China, but that they also try to bring to the rest of the world. So I think that the issue is that many people try to make this Web3 word into something that it is not. And in reality, there is something real about it, because if you look at the trend of like the Brave browser and the MetaMask browser wallet, I mean, Brave is now used by 50 million people per month, and the MetaMask wallet is used by 30 million people per month. So it's like a giant trend, and it's a real thing. It's like something that is not just made up. It's a real thing. But the issue is that right now, like that many of these projects, they don't focus enough on privacy, and they don't focus enough on this digital cash aspect. And I think we need to put more emphasis on this.
Yeah.
Because this is what is ultimately defending us against this kind of dystopia that is being created there.
Yeah, but the crazy thing I was gonna say, like, to everything you say to me, like, makes so much sense. But God forbid you watch any Web3 influencer on YouTube, and it's like total like nonsense. And so I was gonna, and they're the loudest voice. That's like the people that people hear and take advice from, which is kind of terrible, because at the end of the day, it's people trying to make you lose money somehow. But what I was gonna say, like, from your perspective, like, legitimately being involved in it, what are some of the things you hate that the way people like talk about Web3 or the image that it present, based from your point of view?
I mean, it's a bit similar to like the ICO craze in 2017, because like I'm interested in this stuff since maybe 2013. It's like when I first used Bitcoin in 2014 and just played around with it. And then I also bought the Ethereum ICO because I saw it being shilled on Hacker News and thought, okay, this thing is like interesting. I mean, it sounds stupid, like use JavaScript to control your money, and it's but it's enticing for web developers and these kind of nerdy people because they think, oh, I know JavaScript, so now I can do this magic stuff. But obviously, if you want to build these kind of decentralized protocols, you need to know a lot more. And I mean, aesthetically, like Solidity, the language that Ethereum uses, for example, for smart contracts, it looks aesthetically like JavaScript, but it has nothing to do with JavaScript. It's like building these smart contracts and decentralized system is much harder, and it's they make it sound like it's easy, and that's maybe what I hate the most about this whole Web3 term, is that they make stuff that is very complicated, where you need to have a PhD in cryptography to build something like this, and make it sound, oh, you can do this in 3 weeks in a boot camp. It's just not working like this.
No, no.
But nevertheless, I think we need to have a new term for what is happening, because this is not Web2 anymore. It's clearly the next step that we say, okay, we now have like people control their own money. It's not PayPal, Venmo, or like some big company controlling the money. It's like everyone has control over it, and nobody else can see it. Like if you use this kind of technology that has base layer privacy, then it's just like cash. And it's to me, it's like a magical thing that this is possible. It's like it's unbelievable, but it works. So it's cool.
So if someone is interested in getting into Web3, like obviously YouTube probably not the place to go for advice, but like what resources do you recommend for people to get genuine, like kind of overview of how to get started, what it's really used for, rather than like the 3-week boot camps that will tell you could just learn Web3 and make bajillion dollars? Because it seems like this technology is important, but there's so much like misinformation that either people overhype it or people who are genuinely interested in it don't try it out because of the misinformation that's out there. So like, what are your favorite resources, or where would you go to or recommend someone goes to if they're genuinely interested in learning more and going down this path?
I would advise you to trust your own intuition. It's like build your own intuition about what is happening and not listen to anyone, because all of these people, they just, oh, there's a new buzzword Web3, so now I better write a Substack about it and seem influential about it so then I can get consulting gigs or like whatever. Like these people, their interest is not to inform you, their interest is to be seen as a Web3 expert. Like this is the kind of
Right.
game that they are playing.
Yes. Yes.
And so I advise you to just like, if you're interested in Web3, I would say trust your own instincts and read the code. Just read like the things that are really happening, which is like MetaMask, for example, like the changes that came with this UX, that you don't need to copy an address anymore. You can just click on a website, make one click, and then a pop-up opens that is controlled by your browser. And then you can just pay with one click, and there's not no need to copy addresses anymore. I think this is like the UX, like it's a big breakthrough in making the UX of crypto much easier to use even than traditional banks, because you don't need to have an account number or credit card number anymore. You just make one click to pay. It's so much better. But it gets drowned out in this kind of giant mess of people trying to misinform you. So I would advise you, if you want to get into this, read the source code of these browser wallets and learn more about what is actually happening and what is actually useful. It's like most of the stuff that's being built is bullshit.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah.
And are there any communities that you're part of that you recommend people join interested in Web3?
I mean, I'm part of the Monero community because, from my perspective, like they are the most pure when it comes to like the ideology behind it. Because ultimately, what this comes down to is about values. Like, do you just try to make a quick buck by scamming people with some
Right.
dog coin or whatnot, or some monkey pictures, like this goofy stuff? Or do you really believe in we want to have a society where we are in charge of our money and where we are in charge of our own media, and that is not centrally controlled by some government or some banks or some big tech? That's why I'm in this community, because most of the people think like this there. So it's the Monero community. Yeah, and
Yeah.
the technology behind it is also interesting. It's like, okay, we don't care much about fancy stuff. We just want to have digital cash. We just want to be able to have private transactions on the internet, how it should be, like cash,
Yeah.
like real
Yeah.
cash.
Yeah. The allure of Web3 for me, like from not like how, like my opinion, but like my perception of hearing to the loudest voices is literally like do Web3 because this is how you're going to make a lot of money, or this is how you're going to become bajillionaire, or it's like there's always something tied in with money, 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 money. And I think for a lot of people who might be struggling, like that allure to like, let me make more money, maybe there is a shortcut. And I'm realizing that a lot of those loudest voices, they're either going to sell you something, they're going to scam you somehow, but at the end of the day, you're not going to end up with the money. And that's just the unfortunate like kind of reality. And it seems because of so many scams, so much stuff out there, it's really like puts a bad taste in people's mouth of like, you know, kind of seeing the technology for what it is. And by the way, I just want to say thank you for stopping by and talking about this, because to me, like, I think this is like the best conversation I could have about Web3 at all, to cut through like all the BS and literally see like what it is. And to me, like that just seems the few people, the scammers just basically scam everybody to make money, because like there's so many crypto scams. And so for me, it's like, it's not like, don't follow the money from like the standpoint like, oh, I'm going to do Web3 because I want to make money, but do it because you like the technology, you like what it does, you love freedom of speech, and pursue it from that perspective. Actually, I was going to ask you a completely random question. Do you invest in crypto at all?
Not really. Like, I don't see this as an investment. I see it as, okay, this is like a tool to defend my freedom. And I also don't like, I don't exchange fiat money to crypto. It's more like, okay, I work for crypto, or like I do something and somebody's willing to pay me in crypto, then I would just keep the crypto sometimes. But it's like something, I don't know if I would even recommend this. Like, I think you should be interested in it. Like, if you go in it for the money, you will get work. Like, you will probably be the mark, you will probably be the one that gets scammed. And it's much better to go in there for like for your values, and to say, okay, I want to have
So,
an alternative to this world we have right now, and I want to make it better. Yeah.
what, so here's the thing, like this is what I suspected. Real like Web3 developers, they don't live in the hype of like, okay, if I buy, and again, I'm just speaking from my opinion, they don't live off the hype like, okay, let me invest in a bunch of crypto, then I could sell, I could make money quick. They're more interested in using the technology, and it's almost all the suckers. Okay, buy this coin, invest in here, buy this if whatever the fuck it's called. And it's all the suckers, but the developers, they don't care about like the crypto money per se. They care about what can we do with the technology, and then that's where what I'm going to get paid for. And to me, that kind of very interesting point to make is that you're literally interested in the technology because that's what you believe in, and you know the good will come from that, not from the investment, not from like some Bitcoin or like whatever. And so you're investing in your ability to be like to understand the technology better and build cooler stuff with, rather than like, you know, like the allure of like, let me make money quickly. Like you said, like you want to leave an impact on the world. And I think that's amazing to hear, because you like I don't know how to say that, but like talking to you about Web3, like it's a very genuine conversation. When I talk to some other people that always kind of bring up that make money, make money, make money, it becomes like that car salesman pitch, and it really puts bad taste. I think we need more of you. We need to clone you to talk more about like the Web3 in a way that it really is. And so if someone's looking to start in Web3, like a complete beginner, what would you recommend they do? And what is like the go-to language to learn? Just because I don't know anything,
I
that's why I'm
mean,
asking it.
just to clarify also, like, if you are thinking about like buying Monero for as an investment, I say don't do this. Like, this is very bad. Like, especially because it's created this mindset of like the hodlers. You know, maybe the term hodlers. Did you hear this word before?
No.
Because like in crypto, like somebody a while ago wrote like mistyped the word to hold as hodl, and now they always say like, oh, we're hodlers, and think it's funny. But the issue with this kind of thinking is that you will just become extremely lazy and just look at the number go up and down every day, and you will feel stressed, and people will get like they will become obsessed with the number, and they will become lazy, and they don't learn anything anymore. So what would I recommend instead? Instead, like, build relationships in the community, learn languages. I would say learn JavaScript, because still JavaScript is the most used languages to actually build products, build things. And because most likely as a beginner, you will not be able to contribute to like the core software, because you will not be smart enough and determined enough in the beginning, because you just need to spend years of your life sitting in your basement and just focusing on this if you really want to like become part of this kind of group that does this kind of stuff. And you will like, so it's much better to learn something like JavaScript and then use these APIs that these kind of core people create.
Smarter folks.
Yeah, I mean, same for me. Like, I'm not there at this level where you really contribute to the core of it. But I mean, I'm interested in it. I'm reading it, and also there you should not put these people on a pedestal. They are also just normal people, and you can read their
Yeah.
code, and often the code is shitty. So the APIs will also be a pain to work with, but it's worth it because you will learn a lot. And the other tip that I would give is try to build relationships, try to build trust among the community, and it's worth much more than like making quick bucks with some number go up or number go down.
Yeah.
Uh,
Let's say, and I know like I don't know anything about like Web3 jobs. I just know like kind of what I'm involved with, which is mostly like front end. Are there like junior level jobs in Web3, or what does the job like landscape look like?
I think actually, like trying to get a job in the space is probably not a good idea, because most of the companies there, it will be some kind of company that is on shaky grounds. And even like the
Mm,
supposedly good companies like FTX, for example, they were a complete scam. So even the things that look like they are not a scam,
yeah.
they are the
Holy
most likely
Jesus. Yeah.
ones to be a scam. So I think you just need to change your mindset about this and think about, okay, how can I get funding? And it's about building like, I mean, we are still in the beginning of this, so the tools don't work very well. They are still like these kind of copies of the old academic grant funding systems, but there are these grant funding systems where the community is basically building these public goods as a community. It's not like a private company where you go and
Yeah.
work. It's more like, okay, you build trust in the community, then the community trusts you and you can work on bounties, for example. It's completely permissionless. Like, you don't need to write a job application. It doesn't matter how you look. It doesn't matter if you look professional. As long as your code works, you will get money for it. But it's very hard. Like, it's a very competitive field. But you
Yeah.
should like go and look at it like this, and not like, okay, I want to get a job there and do this. It's like, I want to get trust in the community, and I want to get paid by the community in a community in like a crowdfunding way, basically. Uh, and not like
Yeah.
it's a different model, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's very interesting because like a lot of people that think about Web3, they think about it from the standard way. It's like I'm going to learn a skill, then I'm just going to get a job, and then I'm going to get paid, and because that's how like a lot of these courses that people sell on Web3, it's like, oh, you learn this, and all of a sudden you're going to be very hireable and get a job and have your normal 9 to 5. But it seems that that's not how it works based on what you described. So like, how do you, you know, like it seems like very like I don't know what the word is, inconsistent way of making an income. Like for instance, like I guess like let me ask, like, do you make majority of your income right now like off Web3, or do you do other development as well?
I mean, I'm doing also consulting. I mean, this is the other way. Like, because if you build some tools for the community, or you just show that you have the skills to build these kind of things, there will still be traditional companies that will hire you and that will give you consulting jobs. But it's not the thing that you should strive for, because ultimately the way forward is that we as a community build our own tools and fund them by the community. So we basically build an alternative to corporations or the state. We build a new structure basically, where we just work together and organize labor in a
Yeah.
different way. But in the beginning, I mean, there are some people that get paid full time from Monero, for example, but it's still the beginning. Like, I think we need to create. It's probably one of the best projects that you can pick right now if you want to get into this and you want to just have a project to learn. I would say build a public goods funding system. And it's like basically like web development. Like you need to create a small backend where you integrate some crypto API and then have people get funded through this.
Yeah.
That can optimally be self-hosted. Like this kind of thing is what is needed. And I mean, it can also, like if you think about open source project, this can also be like a new way to fund open source projects. So there's many new opportunities, but you need to have your own mindset, and you need to be driven by yourself. Like you cannot expect to say, okay, I
Yeah.
will be hired and then that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, like the reality where people say on YouTube, like, just take this course, you're going to get a Web3 job, no problem. That's obviously false. It's not true. And like anything, like it's hard. And there's there's a lot of self-direction that you have to literally take the power in your hands to make it be successful for you, to make money. And so even though like Web3 is like a worthwhile pursuit and it's more for like the freedom fighting aspect of it, believing in the technology, and then the money will eventually come, but it's not like, oh, I'm going to get hired, I'm going to make the money like you typically see in like just like website building. Hey, I know how to use React, I know how to make a website, this company's going to hire me and they're going to pay money for it. So it almost seems like Web3 is still like a wild west in terms of like organizing like how people are going to make money. And so these YouTubers that guarantee other people are going to make money by selling Web3 courses are literally lying to people, scamming them, and making them feel like, hey, if you take this course, all of a sudden you're going to know what to do. But the reality of it, it's difficult. The whole lay of the land of how people make money with this is still being like kind of figured out. I would say, like, and also because it's so new and it's like a wild west, it's like you are the captain of your ship and you have to figure out what that process of making money. So if someone is looking to get a job in Web3, that's not a good enough motivation. Like, would you say it's more of a, you need to be passionate about the technology and just focus on that, and then maybe do something else to supplement your income?
Yeah, I also think so. I think this kind of thinking where you say, oh, I want to get a job or I just do this for the money, is never going to work, because people, like, you cannot lie on the internet. Like, people will immediately call your bluff and they will know you're just there to fit in. And it's also like, I mean, it's completely different from the corporate world where you have to have this kind of professionalism. And I mean, to be a traditional software developer, you need to be like, okay, you need to be able to play the role of the developer. And there's a certain aspect to that, and you need, if you want to become a software developer, you need to learn how to play this role, and you need to be able to look like you know stuff all the time. And
Yeah.
on the other hand, you need to learn the actual coding and the actual stuff, and for this you need to have more like a beginner mindset. You need to be humble, and you need to be able to um, uh, ask stupid questions and not feel bad about it. And
Yeah.
the issue is that often these two things of playing the role of the professional developer that knows everything together with the guy who knows nothing, it's like it's a contradiction. So you can never really learn because you're always scared and you're always stuck in this role of, I'm trying to pretend to be this guy that
Yeah.
I'm deep down, and then
Not.
you have imposter syndrome and all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's all like a big contradiction. But I think it's much easier in this Web3 or crypto world where you can just be yourself, and maybe you can just ask questions and you grow into this role, and you don't try to have this professionalism about it, because there's no need. Because ultimately, if you do bounties, and if you do bounties completely permissionless, you can just start working on bounty, and then when you have one bounty, you get paid out for the bounty. It's not much money, it's very competitive, but once you have it, then you have a bit of trust, and then you can maybe get a normal grant funding system, like how it still works right now. But I'm also still like a bit critical about this, because it needs to be improved. It still comes from the old world of like
Yeah.
academic grant funding systems. And I mean, it's another opportunity where we can just start working on it, building alternatives, making it better. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, this is like really great. Like, you shining so much light on the whole like aspect of Web3 that I'm like, I just have to ask you questions and not listen to anybody on YouTube. That's basically like what I'm learning. But no, like it's really awesome. Now, another question I have, like, because there's always like these groups and like there are people that do the traditional web dev and like whatever, and they're like, oh, look at these Web3 guys and girls. They have like this opinion. Is that also like backwards? Do you find like some Web3 like developers that look at someone that does Web2 and then they're like, oh, what are these guys doing and like whatever? Um,
I think like this old traditional mindset is it's all for example, recently I started a platform for remote workers in Afghanistan because they saw Upwork banned people from issues. So basically, what I did was I just set up one of these discourse forum instances and made a landing page for it, and I started paying some people from there, and they put Monero stickers in Kabul just to show a message to the community that it's like a real thing. And meanwhile, like often like in these traditional like Web2 companies or Web2 world, or even like in politics or normal people say, oh, these evil crypto bros, they try to scam people. Actually, I think this can be like a tool for liberation and can be a tool for helping people and providing opportunities. So I think all this critique that comes from this side is also, it's like both the Web3 scammers that just try to scam people and the people that only look at these people, they're also wrong. It's like both of these sides are wrong. And yeah, they don't look at what's really happening and that there's a real technological trend behind this. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So, what projects are you working on right now? What are you building?
I mean, as I said, I just did this thing. You can also see it on my Twitter in the pinned tweet, and but it's still like, I mean, it's still early days. And then the other thing I'm working on is a Monero browser wallet. I also made a I made a small video to present it, but it's still not published, so it will still take some time. And then the other thing I'm working on is this Monero subscriptions plugin. It's basically like a Patreon for um, that is self-hostable, and it uses Monero. So it's it's just like this forum software that I mentioned earlier, but it's modified so that you can get access to private groups if you subscribe to if you pay in Monero to get a subscription, basically. So it's basically like Patreon has the exact same functionality that you can moderate your community, you can have a community, and it's paid. It has like a paywall, and it's free. Everyone can self-host it and play with it, but it's also like it still needs to, like I'm beta testing it at the moment with StageNet coins, which is basically like a test net for Monero. And once it's stable enough, I would just say, okay, no, everyone should start using it. And yeah, it's basically giving more free speech power to the creators like you.
Nice, nice. No, it's awesome. And I'm gonna share. You don't mind if I share your Twitter, right, in the chat so people can check
Yeah,
you
for
out? Just want
sure.
to ask
Fair.
first.
And
Yeah. So
I also forgot another project. It's like monerochan.news. It's a news website for Monero related stuff where I do some
nice.
interviews. Uh, there's also a landing page for my project, so maybe we can share that. It's like monerochan.cash. Maybe I can post it in the chat.
Yeah, you could either put it directly in the YouTube chat. And yeah, yeah,
monerochan.cash and monerochan.news. And my Twitter is twitter.com/therobo. Yeah, I posted in the
nice,
YouTube chat.
nice, perfect. Yeah, no, it's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, no, for me, like anybody that's interested in Web3, I want them to follow people like you, people that genuinely are involved and not like the scammers or influencers. And it's like, that's like one battle. Like my channel is obviously like too small and I hope I never get, like, of course I want to be a content creator and be able to, sustain some sort of income from it. But I don't want to become like one of these crazy influencers that fall into the trap of not doing the work that they really believe in, but pushing whatever the most like paid like promotion is. And going back to like that thing that just failed miserably in crypto, all these crypto influencers push that thing so hard because they got so much money. And now so many people got scammed and people probably will never get money back. I hope the guy maybe goes to prison for the thing he did. Uh,
But he
but
made
he's,
big political donations, so maybe not. Like the New York
uh,
Times made like lots of softball articles about him and just presented him as, oh, he just made a mistake, poor kid, he's such a good guy. But actually, he's just a scammer.
no, no, no. I would, whenever you're playing with that amount of money and someone says it wasn't a mistake, no, it wasn't. It was not a mistake. Like, don't listen. You don't make mistakes at that type of level like that. You know what I mean? It's and and it definitely is basically, you know, got a lot of people like lost a lot of money, people in trouble who kind of jumped on this bandwagon of let me invest in some sort of cryptocurrency without really understanding the technology, understanding the risks. And I think like for a lot of people, what they need to do is, like you said, use your own judgment, do your own research, and don't believe anybody else you hear. Like, because at the end of the day, like it's on you. And so that's what people have to understand. Just because someone says something doesn't mean that's entirely true and doesn't mean that it's guaranteed. And I think the lesson that like I'm learning is that Web3 has really good technology that's very important for the world. But at the same time, there's a lot of scammers that are going to take advantage of people who don't want to do their own research because it's hard and are looking to make a quick buck and take advantage of them. And so, yeah, that's basically like my lesson. And so, yeah, anybody who wants to know more about Web3, follow Sperbil on his Twitter because obviously, you know, he knows what he's talking about. And the most important part is that you're like, you literally like, so like, I don't even want to use this word honest because it's shameful that so many people are dishonest, but like I learned more about the reality of Web3 from you, like in this conversation that I did, like watching influencers. And so, very, very awesome. Is there like, anything like people should watch out for, like, or like when people are starting with Web3 development, like some gotchas or some tips that you would give?
I think maybe one of the most important things is to remember that most of the code, like in the state of the code that it's in right now, is very rough. Like it's still like, I mean, for example, Monero has like a $2 billion market cap, which is like extremely crazy, like if you think about it. But at the same time, it's still very like, I mean, it's still rough around the edges. The APIs are not very good, and we have a lot of work to do to improve it. So I would say if you want to get into this, don't have this kind of false belief that, oh, this is such a pristine piece of technology, it's so wonderful. Like many of the people that are hodlers, like the people that bought it for the investment stuff, they never become developers in it because they always think, oh, it must be so great. So I try something and then it doesn't work and then they give up. So
Yeah.
you need to go into this with the expectation that most of the stuff is really, really like shaky and rough around the edges, and you need to, and maybe it's maybe it's actually our value that we add as developers is like we need to make it better, we need to make it easier to
Yeah.
use, there's still so much to do. So yeah,
Yeah. No,
that's what
that's,
I would tell people to look out for, like this kind of
yeah.
attitude to,
Yeah.
yeah,
Have realistic expectations. That's the
yeah.
secret. It's like, you know, don't expect going to the moon anytime soon. Be willing to put in the work. Yeah. And it's so crazy how many scams there are. And I guess like, I wanted to ask if you ever watched that guy, Tech Lead on YouTube. He
Yeah,
made the million coin, which
yeah.
I don't know if it was a scam or not, except he probably made a lot of money and everybody else maybe didn't. Like, what is your thought on like kind of like that whole thing of people like coming up with these coins and pumping and dumping and doing this crazy stuff where they're literally taking advantage of people's naivety of not doing research on the topic?
I mean, to be very honest, I think that at this point, because I also like saw the 2017 ICO craze, and I listened back then to the Monero, the Bitcoin maxis, And they always said, "Oh, it will all go to zero tomorrow." So I was an idiot back then and opened a short on Ethereum. Like I bought like around 280 Ethereum in the
Oh,
ICO, and then I
wow.
opened a short on it. So basically, I lost all this money through this gambling
Jeez.
and believing this kind of Bitcoin maximalist attitude of, "Oh, it's all a scam, we'll all go to zero." No, it will not go to zero. Like people will still believe in it. And also, I think actually like Ethereum, I mean, even so, like some of the technologies, like this aesthetic of JavaScript to make complicated things look easy, and it has this kind of scam aspect to it that you can easily make these kind of token scams and whatnot. I still think that all these token scammers are probably like it's morally it's just like a scam. Okay, the people wanted to get rich, they wanted to get scammed. If people really are dumb enough to believe in the stuff, it's all also to some degree their fault. And what I really think is much more dangerous is stuff like FTX, where the people come out and say, "Oh, this is like, I'm not a token scammer, I'm not doing pump and dump, but here's my referral code for FTX," and they
Yeah.
get lots of money from FTX. And they
Millions,
should, you know
millions.
what? They should have known. They should have known, because if you get so much money from an exchange, like where does the exchange make so much money from? It's like
Yeah.
they
From
should
how,
they
yeah.
should have known about this. And also
Yeah.
the Democrats and the Republicans that got money from them, it's the same thing. It's the same scam. It's also just like they also just push their pump and dump. Like
That is
it's like
so
a
crazy. It's so wild. And yeah, it is nuts. It is nuts. And so I don't know too much because I don't follow this stuff closely. So I don't know like anything about the different coins, like what's like good, what's not. Is there a push from the government of like having some sort of like control or oversight over like the cryptocurrency? Or like I guess I don't know enough even enough to like phrase this question, but it seems that even though like let's say like Bitcoin and Ethereum, do you think like government is trying to figure out a way how they could control that? So
yeah. I
maybe
mean,
go ahead.
yeah, I mean, in the US, they do like, you have the SEC, for example, the Security Exchange Commission, who does this kind of securities regulation. Like when you do an IPO, like Tesla, for example, or like Twitter, like some big company does an IPO, they regulate this kind of space. And then there's the CFTC, like that regulate commodities and commodities trading. And all these agencies fight among each other who gets to regulate this thing. And it's all very messy and it doesn't make much sense. But the gist of it is that they try to regulate something, and there's also like Ethereum try to cozy up to like the World Economic Forum and like all these kind of like the regulators, and try to like similar to like SPF, like the FTX guy did. Like they also try to basically cozy up to them, and but it all like it's like they will still get regulated. And I
Yeah.
think that's why it's also good to stay away from all the stuff and focus on the digital cash aspect of it. Like Monero, for example, it's just like cash. And I think they will have a tough time outlawing this because it can be used for good things. Like, for example, the thing that we're doing with like the freelancer platform in Afghanistan. It's like it's helping people in oppressive regimes abroad, and it's a good thing. And I
No.
think it will be much harder to outlaw this technology than all these scams. So I think it's good to focus on the things, like again, like you should focus on the tools that you want to personally use and not trying to make a quick buck. And it's also like it's dubious like how these kind of tokens are giving value to anything. It's like if you cannot use it as a medium of exchange because the number goes up and down all the time and it's not very liquid, then what's the purpose of it? And then I mean, there's also, I mean, that's why also maybe some of the regulators look like they have a point, because they say, okay, we have these securities like stocks, and these things are just like stocks, so we need to regulate it. And yeah, just stay away from these kind of things that look like stocks, like that behave like stocks, where they say it's an investment instead of the projects that just behave like money and want to be like money. Like, yeah, just focus on this part, then you will probably be golden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the
But it's
goal
just my
is
perspective, so everybody should think for themselves.
yeah, definitely
Yeah.
do the research, but I feel like if someone is trying to invest in crypto or all other aspects, and you don't understand the technology, you're making a mistake.
Yeah,
Because you're going to
absolutely.
make really, really bad decisions and you're going to get scammed. And like, that's why I don't have any crypto or Ethereum or whatever, because I don't know anything about like the technology. And to me, that's where people basically mess up, is that they're trying to play with something that they don't understand. And that's kind of like coming to your question, like, how much do you invest in crypto? And it's like, you invest in the technology, you invest in, you know, the tech behind it, building new things, using it to benefit. And if you solve a big enough problem, like, the benefits and money will come. But don't try to, you know, do what like a lot of people that naively do, is that they hear the term Web3, they automatically assume it's the fastest way to make some sort of high income, regardless if it's by working or by investing. They do zero research. They buy a course or they buy a bunch of currency, and then like they lose their shirt. And for me, that's like the one takeaway is, before understanding, you know, the investment part of it, understand the technology and how like things actually work. You know, if you want to jump into the space. So
Yeah, I think like if you want, even if you want to be an investor, you should learn how to code, because if you don't know how to code, like how are you going to understand the stuff? Like I still say don't invest in the stuff because it's risky, and you will become lazy. You will get into this hodler mindset. And so I think it's better to just learn about the technology and use it. Because for example, I mean, right now, if you want to accept PayPal or Shopify, you want to make a shop, you want to accept money online, you have a risk with this because people can use stolen credit cards and then your account will get frozen. Also, you need to provide your passport or your ID card. So it's very cumbersome. Like if you want to sign up for Shopify or what is the other one, Stripe,
yeah,
and you want to integrate this in your website, it's very cumbersome because you need to have all this fraud prevention stuff. You need to give them your details. And with Monero, you can just install an app basically, and you are done. Like
yeah,
and you don't have the risk because like with Bitcoin or Ethereum, for example, if you accept the money can still come from sanctioned addresses. If the money came from, because everything is transparent, all the transactions are public with Bitcoin and Ethereum, for example. When if there was a transaction and you receive a transaction from someone who was connected to a sanctioned address, you will get into trouble and you maybe lose your exchange account. But with Monero, for example, which acts much more like digital cash, because all the transactions on the base layer are private. So it's just like cash.
wow,
If you receive the money, you don't have any liabilities of risks of taking the money. It's like if somebody hands you a $100 bill, this dollar bill is yours. You have it in
yeah,
your hand, it's yours. It's just like this, but on the internet. And with PayPal and these other things, it's like, oh, okay, you received money, but now your account is frozen and your business goes bankrupt. It happened to so many people. And you have similar dangers with coins where it's transparent. Like for example, with the truckers in Canada, it was similar. They saw all the transactions because everything's public, and they still ran into trouble. So that's why we need to have these like base layer
yeah,
privacy technology. So yeah, so if you think about it like this, like you think very intuitively, what can this thing do for me? What is the purpose? Okay, the purpose is very clear. It's going to help me accept money online without risk or with very little risk compared to all these other technologies. And then I'm just use it for this one purpose, and I don't try to invest in it and try to get a new mortgage on the house to to get all in on this. It's like
yeah.
it's not a casino. Just live your life, learn skills, and use it as is how it should be used. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I should have titled this video better, because like the information is like so good. I'll have to retitle it, but call it like the Web3, like only one video you have to see to make bajillion dollars. Like just so all these people get excited, and then they get the reality,
Yeah.
the truth of like, oh shit, that's not like what it's like. I think like it's important to have like honest conversations. And like I said, like I Googled Web3, and what we just talked about, I found zero conversations like that about it. It's either like buy this course or how to invest or how to, it's like very like centralized, like sensationalize like this view, like, oh my God, it's exciting, you can make so much money. It's like, and that's like not the reality. And I feel like it's, like I said before, it's like how people get scammed. They get involved in something they don't understand, and bad things happen. So learn the technology first, be passionate about the project, solve like impactful problems, and then eventually like the success will come. But don't look at it as like a quick scheme to get rich, regardless if it's as a job or as investing, because that's the way you're going to get burnt. So if someone like starting out, what would you say is the first good project to build with Web3?
I think the first thing you should do is familiarize yourself with the API, because in a sense, like everything is a wallet. Like you can break it down like this. You can say you want to build something that accepts money online, for example, for whatever reason. You are essentially building a valid software, but it runs on the backend of a server. So I think if you look at it from this framework, I think you can build useful things. And then you just need to think about it in maybe even in like a boring way, because cash is something boring. It should be something boring. It should have as little surprises as possible. If you
Yeah.
get the money, it should be yours. There should be no drama about it, and that's what exciting. It should be such a boring thing that it's like you can focus on your business and you don't focus
Yeah.
uh, on the risk assessment of where your money came from and all this bureaucratic stuff. So that's why I think it would be a good project. And I also think that maybe it would be good to build something for or make the process easy of public goods funding, because I think many people underestimate it. Okay, actually, what we are doing here is we are building an alternative to the state. We are building, money is a public good. It's a public thing. It's not a private thing. And that's why I think people should pick a project like this, like build some kind of small crowdfunding site for maybe that you can self-host. Like this, I can also link an article where I wrote about this on Monero.news,
Yeah.
where some people like different ways to get into this. And there's one guy who went into this as a researcher to do like analyze of these smart contracts and stuff. This is like one route you can go, but this is very hard, and it's very like it's basically digging into all the scams and finding where the vulnerabilities are, and then doing like these bug bounty programs. It's so I would rather recommend, okay, go in the other direction, try to build like this new state, this new structure, and think about what
Yeah.
would be valuable there. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And so based on like your experience and what you've done, where do you see the future of this going?
I think it's like a battle. Like I mean, we have like we have a road and we have two ways to go. Okay, one road leads to like the dystopia where everything is controlled by the government, and they are coming with their like central bank digital currencies, and they will have the ability to just turn off your money whenever they feel like it and use it for political purposes, and it will lead to a system like in China where everybody gets like a red code, like a COVID code red, and then you go to the camp for 2 weeks or longer. And this is like one way we can go, or the other way is, okay, we have something that works like cash on the internet, and we have our own like public goods funding system. So we as groups can organize, we can fund ourselves, and then we have our own media that is funded by the people, that is not controlled by some big companies with advertisement and this kind of stuff. And I think we should all work on building this kind of new world. I think it will be much more fun than live in the dystopia.
Yeah, yeah, no, I
I mean,
agree
maybe
with
it
you.
sounds too extreme, but I actually honestly believe in this. Like it's the reality, because the thing is with money, like you have perfect money, or you have perfect cash, something that is really like cash, or you have something that is controlled. Because in digital, there's only one and zero. Either it's controlled or it's not controlled, and so
Yeah.
we can now decide between like a world that is free and a world that is dystopia. Like this. Maybe it sounds too dramatic, but I'm real. Like honestly believe this.
It's not too dramatic at all, because people just has to, like, China's a perfect example of where things could be heading. Like if anybody's interested, look into what China's doing and ask yourself, do you want to live in that type of society? And most people, like normal people, say no. There's no reason to be in a place where everything is controlled and you have no freedom to do things. And so I think like you're definitely fighting the good fight. There's more to this than just, the crypto, the make money. It's like literally the freedom of speech and giving power to the people, to the community, rather than one centralized organization. Because at the end of the day, it's like, when there's a central organization, it's like your whole life is in their hands. And like one example I would say, not to get too political, but like I'm not gonna use anybody in particular, but like if you're part of an organization and you have one leader, whatever that leader decides to do, you're beholden to that decision, even though you don't agree with it, because there's nothing in your power that you could do to stop him or her. And you're literally working on creating a world where that's not a thing, because everybody has a voice. And I think that is the true beauty of Web3 and like what this whole thing is, the direction it's heading. And it almost seems that based on our conversation, any person that is involved in Web3, they also share that same freedom of speech beliefs and this right for individuals to have access to things and not have it be controlled by one central authority. So it is like you're fighting like the good fight. And so
I mean, there's also the people that don't believe in this and want to cozy up to the government, but that is how you spot the scammers. Like the people that don't understand this fundamental thing that, okay, either we have freedom or we don't. It's like there's nothing in between. And you can easily spot the people that just want to sell you something. Like, I mean, for example, the Kevin O'Leary guy, like he also invested in FTX and was a paid spokesperson for them. And he said, "Oh, we need to have more regulation. Where this cowboy stuff needs to end." But he invested in the scammers.
Yeah, he made his millions already.
Yeah,
and now after the
he
fact,
was like a spokesperson for the scammers.
Plays both
so
sides.
This is how you spot them.
Yeah,
That's how you spot them. And it's also not about politics in the sense that, okay, left and right, Democrats or Republicans. It's like a thing about freedom or not freedom. It's like different, like a different dimension. It's
that makes sense. And I was really excited to have you as a guest to talk about it, because it really opened up, what it is truly, and cut through all the BS. And I think like I'll definitely will recommend people to follow you on Twitter, and then definitely rewatch this podcast for anybody interested in Web3, because I think they need to. And we obviously can't talk about everything, but just this view into the soul of what Web3 is and the reason why it exists is important for people to kind of understand why it even exists, and not to believe in scams and influencers and all this nonsense. So this was really good. I know we've been on for almost an hour and 50 minutes, so I don't want to go too long. By the way, thanks again. You're welcome to come on anytime. I always love having interesting conversations, by the way. Just kind of keep it open, because I just like talking to people about the stuff that I'm interested in as well. So that's pretty cool. And so before you go, is there anything else you want to mention or talk about, Web3 related or not?
I think that's it.
That's it. No,
Thank you very much for.
No, it's
Thank
awesome.
you very much for talking, and was lots of fun.
Same here. And so thank you so much for coming on, and definitely follow him on Twitter. That's the best place to stay in touch with you, or do you use anything else? Okay,
Twitter is good, or
nice.
My GitHub account, or monero.news.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well, thank you so much. And everybody, thank you for tuning in. This was an amazing talk, and we'll see everyone later. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.